What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Grid Live Encore. I'm Ben Schneider, joined, as always, by Brandon Crossland. Brandon, how's it going tonight?
It's going all right, Ben. Good to see you and everyone here on Grid Live Encore. Thank you for joining us. It's been a great weekend. Got to spend time with Matthew Owens on USRN and finally got on a Cup Series race on there. That was a lot of fun. And we also got to plug this show, so it all kind of comes full circle.
I was kind of hoping you were going to wear your Nashville SC shirt tonight. Philadelphia Union played them this weekend, and we stole a couple of points from you guys of a death there with a late goal to take a 2-1 win. But apologies there if you I don't know if you caught that game or not.
I'm as a fair weather MLS fan as they come. I mean, I couldn't have told you when the first game was. It's just Nashville's team, and I was excited whenever they made their arrival. I have not paid close attention whatsoever. I don't have a Apple TV Plus subscription or whatever you have to watch MLS games. I'm not there.
Well, I'm rocking the Andre Blake keeper kit tonight because they're the last undefeated team left in the league here, although there's a caveat that there are quite a few draws in that, so we're not quite at the top of the table. But we'll leave it there, and may the best team win if we meet again down the road. But we've got some Martinsville action to get into here, as well as a few other things. But before we do that, as always, I want to give a shout out to our Patreon supporters, Colin Deschelle, Mark, Robin, David, and Matthew. Thank you all so much for investing in what we're trying to build here. And thank you to everyone who has followed us on social media, helped us exceed the goal of 1,000 subscribers. Now here's to the next 1,000. Thank you all so much for that. We are still very, very happy with the results from a couple of weeks ago, and continue to look forward to what we are trying to build and take to the next level here. So if you like what you see tonight, you can join those 6 wonderful individuals on Patreon, or if you'd rather make a one-time donation instead, you can visit the links to buy me a coffee in the description box below. Or if you're watching on YouTube, we of course now have the super chats enabled as well. Now let's jump right into it here, and let's start with the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series race. And Christian Eckes once again ended up taking the win. Ty Majeski second. A great run for Chase Purdy as well in third. By far his best result of the year. And great to see that Spire truck finally have some success as well, in light of Roger Cruz getting his win and 7 running pretty well to start the season as well. But Brandon, let's talk about the race winner, Christian Eckes. How big of a statement win was this by him and McAnally Hilgeman team?
It was absolutely dominating there, being able to take the stages like that at Martinsville. And they've got something really special there at McAnally Hilgeman Racing, a repeat win this year for Christian Eckes. And I don't think this is the last one for sure. They've got something really special along with Tyler Ankrum, the 19-18 combo. That 18, it's still kind of working on my eyes. I still have to wring my eyes whenever I see it, because I keep thinking there's going to be a Joe Gibbs looking 18. So aesthetically, it's still a little hard to get used to that. But as for Christian Eckes, he's getting his groove back, and I can remember not too long ago we were talking about what is Christian Eckes going to have to do to keep showing his worth and keep showing why he needs to stay in the level he's at. But recent success has shown that, hey, let him work on it. He's getting better, and he could be a championship contender, certainly in the championship 4 when we get to Phoenix.
Yeah, I mean, again, if you had told me that Eckes was going to start, running well and being in contention for, a race win here or there with the McAnally Hilgeman team, when you think about where that program was with Derek Krause, I expected that it was well within their capabilities to take that next step and be a team that was capable of that. But just how quickly they've turned into a fantastic partnership, and one that appears to be capable of not just contending for championships, but perhaps winning one, and maybe even at this point of the year being the favorite. It has been great to see. And to your point as well, Brandon, I'm glad you brought up Tyler Ankrum. You see him up there in the top 5 as well. A great run for him. And again, somebody that won a race very early on in his career, but has not had that same level of success or that rise up that I think a lot of us were expecting based on what he was doing in K&N East, and then what he did very quickly in his rookie truck season. To see him have that success as well. Again, sometimes it's just a matter of a change of scenery and putting the right people in the right places. And I think Ankrum has been a huge part of that as well. So great results there all around for McAnally Hilgeman.
Yeah, it really is. They've got a tight-knit team right there. And it's been crazy to see how quickly that has turned around for them.
Yeah, a turnaround for them. Somebody getting turned around and not too happy. You see them down at the opposite end of our top 20 graphic here. Stewart Friesen and Timmy Hill. This was one that certainly made the rounds in terms of a viral video from pit road. You usually get at least one of those from across the top 3 series every time we go to Martinsville. But Brandon, I think the general consensus was if you've pissed Timmy Hill off that much, you've probably done something that's pretty indefensible. Knowing Timmy Hill's character and everything, were you surprised at just how irate he was on pit road having that conversation with Stewart Friesen?
Yeah, my thoughts exactly. Timmy Hill is, in all around, seems like a very pleasant guy, like a guy I'd like to, go to Bojangles with in Charlotte, if if you just had the chance. It seems like a guy you want to hang out with, and all around pleasant. And during, I can remember through the COVID years and the Invitational Pro Series that they had on Fox and things like that, he won the Texas race in the Pro Invitational. And that was a cool story when I was riding for Speed Sport. I remember that very well. That was a lot.
I have the diecast from that.
You do? You really?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. Those were some fun times. And that's why I remember Timmy Hill the most. Also, I remember him being NASCAR's ambassador for JonTron on the popular YouTube channel. Whenever he invited him down to Charlotte, and I think he brought him to the Xfinity Series Coke 600 weekend, and JonTron from New York City just blown away by the what exactly this sport is, and Timmy Hill's just like, yeah, man, come check it out, like getting him in the car and the experience and all that stuff. Timmy Hill, an all around just pleasant guy, even though most of his career he's had lackluster equipment and is usually a back of the field driver. Certainly doesn't reflect his talent level. I'm sure it's just where he is and where he's been the past few years. So whenever you get him upset, I've never seen him like that before. Certainly not in the public eye. So I didn't see what exactly happened between Stewart Friesen and Timmy Hill. I think you told me it was a post-race incident there, but I don't remember seeing that anywhere during the race.
Yeah, I mean, again, I hate to say it, but it's kind of par for the course with Fox Sports in 2024. There was something during the Cup race that happened on the last lap that Mike Joy mentioned calling from the booth, and we had to go to Twitter to find out what actually happened because Fox never followed up with that, and that was for the Cup Series race, let alone what was happening in trucks. Of course, this is the same network that completely missed when Stewart's wife Jessica flipped at Knoxville a couple of years ago and never followed up on that either. But the race highlights montage that we both checked out before just before we came on air tonight, it did show that clip at the very end of Timmy Hill being spun sideways sitting in the middle of the track and Friesen just carrying on the rest of his cool down lap and driving away. So clearly something happened after the checkered. And again, like I said, for Timmy Hill to be that upset, I think is really pretty telling. And again, I don't know if Stewart Friesen was just being sarcastic or if he was, actually trying to just remain calm and own up to it. But he was just kind of like, you're right. So whatever happened, I hope the two of them were able to follow it up and put it behind them. It certainly made for a viral moment here, but I think it also speaks to what we've talked about on this show several times of the current culture of the truck series. Stewart Friesen and even Timmy Hill as well. I think, like I mentioned before we came on, Timmy Hill won the Nationwide Series Rookie of the Year in 2011, which is already 13 years ago now. It's kind of hard to believe how fast time has flown by, but he's I think solidly achieved that veteran status at this point as well, especially running his own equipment and with how long he's been around as an independent. I think he certainly qualifies as one of those independent drivers or truck lifers, if you will, at this point in his career. And that certainly applies to Stewart Friesen as well. And these guys are getting into, discussions like this. And, we talk all the time, is it a maturity issue? Do these veterans need to, kind of lead the way for young drivers and kind of whip the series back into shape here? Clearly whatever happened with Stewart Friesen, like I said, if you got Timmy Hill that mad, he certainly isn't doing his part to try to help curb that issue that we see so often in the truck series.
Yeah, then that's what I don't like, because the younger drivers, they're going to look at those veterans, whether they're journeymen or not, or primary team competitors. they're going to look to see what they're doing currently to decide, okay, well, that's how we do things here. That's how we're going to operate with our fights when we get to them later in our careers. So I don't like that. That's what they could just get to see all too often. Also, from the Toby Christie interview post race, it just seemed like it was something that wasn't just one incident, but it was kind of one of those things where I think we've seen this before from someone else, but I forgot exactly who it was. But it was where they just felt that they were being abused all race long, and they finally got out of the car and they were just fed up with it, and they had to let their frustration out. And it wasn't anything that we saw from just watching the race, but it was what they certainly felt all race long, and they had to speak it out because we just didn't see it. And that happened this year, and I'm forgetting who those two drivers were.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, it's easy to forget because there have been
so many of them isn't it? Yeah.
Over the years. Yeah, I mean, you think back to just last year at Talladega, Matt Crafton and Nick Sanchez. That was another example. Crafton is, I mean, I can't say it enough. How long he's been in the series, how consistently he's been able to, stick around and continue to be capable of putting in good performances, and an unbelievable consecutive start streak. He should be the veteran leader, the veteran voice in this series here. And for him to get into an altercation with Nick Sanchez last year was, again, incredibly disappointing to see. But again, I think it speaks to this idea that, it's not just the young guys in this series. It's the entire series as a whole sometimes. And again, not that Martinsville is a place where, you can't expect some of that from time to time to show through. But it's just, I think there's a certain aspect of fatigue when it's kind of become part of a series identity at this point with how often we see it. And unfortunately, it was on full display once again this weekend.
Yeah, it is a little annoying how it's become just a part of the character of the series, but that's something we're learning to navigate through, and we're going to be talking a little more about here at these next topics.
For sure. Well, let's talk on one more final point here before we move on. We got some breaking news on the wrap-up show yesterday. It sounds like Brody Kostecki has a Supercars future set now, at least for this year, so that's good for him. Maybe not so good for the people that were hoping that he'd make an early entrance into NASCAR alongside Shane Van Gisbergen. But Supercars invasion did continue with Cam Waters. You see him down there in 30th. Unfortunately, he got beat up a little bit, had a busted radiator, ended up with a DNF. But Fox reported he's going to be back at Kansas. Still waiting for official confirmation from either him or ThorSport Racing, rather, as to what future plans might look like. But Brandon, obviously, this was one heck of a track to prove or to choose to make your Truck Series debut here, or your NASCAR debut entirely. What track can you think of that you would like to see Waters, if he does decide to come back and make a second attempt here in the Truck Series? Where would you like to see him, considering that COTA was the only road course this year?
Yeah, that really stinks that we've already hit our only road course when we've got some Supercars guys coming over and wanting to try their hand at the tough trucks of NASCAR. Looking at the schedule ahead, I'm glad he's getting Kansas because, at least it's basically the next one up that they'd be able to schedule May 4th, as Texas is literally just next weekend, this coming Friday. If I wanted to put someone from Australia on the schedule, why not do it the same way that Shane Van Gisbergen got his start with IRP at Lucas Oil Raceway Park? Lucas Oil Indianapolis Raceway Park is the proper name there. Why not get it started there? I can't think of a different place. Certainly not Talladega. I don't think we want to put him at Talladega. Just because of the wildness of that track. I don't know if that's a good start for him. Would you consider, after Kansas, if that goes well, would you consider immediately the next race like Darlington or North Wilkesboro? What do you think that would end up being like? Just another dud or a time to learn?
Yeah, well, I think, North Wilkesboro would be, again, it's a short track similar to what he just experienced here. Maybe not quite as tight as Martinsville is, but
it's repaved.
I would like to see, I'd like to see a mile and a half. I think Kansas would be a great next step. And, certainly that's predominantly, the type of oval racing that he would see if he were to make this a full-time effort in the same way that SVG has. So I think Kansas would be a great place for him to kind of get his feet wet and make his 1.5 mile debut. I think that would be a great pick. Again, I'd love to be able to say, oh, he should do Mid Ohio, he should do Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. It's a perfect fit. But again, we've already hit our quota for a year on road courses, and again, that's a little bit frustrating to see, because even with the stage breaks coming back, I think if we're gonna make these teams build a road course setup truck, it does seem, why are we only bringing them out once a year? It seems like a lot of effort for only a one-time thing.
It's a big problem, because now I was more and more realizing that whenever we saw what happened with Circuit of the Americas, how the team that won, and they built the truck for road course racing. Yeah. So really, it favors those who have more in their pocketbook, the teams that have more budget in the R&D center to have a greater advantage at the one track on the schedule. Which if you look at it, with the fewest races on the calendar for the lowest series, they have a better chance of locking themselves inside the playoffs, with less chances for other drivers to lock their way in.
Yeah, well, that's another good point as well. If you get an opportunity, and I'm sure ThorSport is certainly no small team. I mean, they're the defending champions with Ben Rhodes, for crying out loud. But that it's going to take a ride with a team like that to have a shot at running well. If that's the situation that you have, where the big teams can afford to go all in on one race and spend those extra dollars and resources building a truck like that, whereas with smaller teams, you kind of just take what you can afford to bring, and is it really worth it trying to go through all that extra effort for just one road course race a year? So again, that's a scheduling aspect that I think they should look at if we're going to put the trucks on road courses, which I think it would be nice to add that variety of a truck series schedule a couple times a year, but I think it should be at least a couple times a year, if not a few times. Just once, and if it's going to be just once, I don't know, Code is necessarily the best option for that either, but we'll see with it. I mean, obviously the schedule always changes a little bit year to year, like that with the lower series. So I'm sure there are plenty of great options, but it's just a matter of actually finding a spot for them on the schedule.
I have one more analysis from the truck race, if I may, before we go on. Sure. There was an incident into turn one with Dean Thompson and Grant Enfinger, and it appeared to be. And when I first saw the whole irate thing on our things to talk about, I was thinking it was going to be that, and then I saw Timmy Hill and Stewart Friesen. What? Because I certainly thought it was going to be Grant Enfinger and Dean Thompson getting smashed into the turn one wall. And then I look back, they were kind of pointing fingers at Enfinger. I look behind him and I see the two-time champion Ben Rhodes, and I see the little nudge he gave into him, and I think that's just a racing incident where Grant Enfinger, that's not him pulling into Dean, that was getting nudged from behind, and that's his just gut reaction to, hey, I just got slammed, and put Dean Thompson out of the race. And you see it there, 33rd place finish, and Grant 22nd.
Yeah, I felt quite sorry for Dean. It was really nothing that he did wrong. It's just wrong place at the wrong time, and that's, I think, frequently been the case for Dean Thompson, unfortunately, in the last couple of years. He has put in some strong runs recently. I want to give him credit where it's due, but unfortunately, again, wrong place in the wrong time, and it ends up with a second to last place finish there at the end of the leaderboard. One more point on Cam Waters before we move on. Motorsport.com, this is what they reported him as saying. It was definitely wild, but I loved it. It was a lot of fun. Everyone was kind of into each other a bit, and the racing is pretty hard. And then the article talks about how Fox Sports reported that he's going to be back for Kansas. And this is what Waters said in regards to that. At the moment, it is only tonight. I have a pretty busy schedule of supercars, and I just wanted to get through tonight and see where we were at. We will look at a calendar and see what we can do from here. So, again, maybe it's just a matter of deals have to be finalized and contracts need to be signed, and it's basically all but official at this point. Maybe it's just he didn't want to reveal it prematurely, but this definitely sounds like somebody that enjoyed his experience and wants to come back and doesn't want this to just be we can check it off the list and it's a one and done. He seems to be pretty serious about giving this another go as well.
Yeah, it's kind of odd that Fox Sports ended up, basically all but confirming it, and then we had the driver say, "Hold on, like that kind of makes me a little disappointed that Fox would jump on something like that, and the driver would have to tell us that it's not official. I would really hope that Fox would, only give official things.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess it's different because Fox is a TV network, but
yeah,
I see both sides of
that.
High
standard.
Yeah, I do see both sides of it from a journalistic standpoint. I feel like if there's news to be broken, it's your job to go ahead and do that. Whether the teams put a release out or not. But at the same time, I do sometimes wish that all these major like Kyle Busch to RCR, for example. Everybody knew, it's not like he came out from behind the curtain at the Hall of Fame and nobody knew what was coming, right? I do wish sometimes we could go back to the days where teams break the news like this, and I guess Tyler Reddick going to 2311 was kind of like that. Nobody really saw that coming, at least from what I can remember. And
it was a year early.
Yeah, you want to talk about RCR and how they must have felt there.
It's like Lewis Hamilton to Ferrari, oh yeah, but it's not happening until next year. So
yeah. But again, I mean, that was enough. Like, I mean, imagine if Lewis had been the first one to put that news out on his socials, and
right,
that was how the news broke. Like, it was a couple of hours of rumors, and then a couple hours of confirmation, and then Mercedes put a statement out, then Ferrari, then Lewis, and everybody. So, I mean, again, I understand both sides of that, but I do kind of miss those days where that was a little more commonplace.
And then Mercedes saying we do not appreciate the way that Ferrari handled that press release.
Yeah. The timing of this could not have been worse.
It couldn't have been worse. Couldn't have been worse.
All right, we move on now to the Xfinity Series race, and Brandon, of course, can't help but think on a day like this of a race that is near and dear to my childhood, the 2007 AT&T 250 at Milwaukee. Eric Almirola put that Joe Gibbs number 20 car on pole. Denny Hamlin was trying to get to Milwaukee from Sonoma. The cars were blocking the helicopter pad. He couldn't land at the track. Eric had to get in the car and start the race, and did a darn good job doing so, leading the first 43 laps, running in third at the time of a caution. And then Gibbs made one of the most controversial decisions in the history of the series, pulling him from the car to put their Cup regular in it. Fortunately for Gibbs, Denny Hamlin got his lap back, came through and won the race, and gave Eric Almirola his first win in the Gibbs number 20 car. And here, 17 years later, Eric's earned his second career win in that car, but the first that he's actually been able to cross the finish line himself for and enjoy in victory lane, having not left the track early in disgust. So when you think of full circle moments, Brandon, the only one that I can think of off the top of my head, and again, I wish that he had done it a little bit more cleanly than he did, but Austin Dillon winning the Daytona 500 20 years after Dale Earnhardt's 20 years of trying, like that.
You have to bring that up with Eric Almirola in view.
Well, it's Eric was involved in it. It's a nice even number. I mean, again, I don't love how he did it. I wish it had been more clean, but that's the kind of moment I'm talking about here. That's the best example I can come up with.
Yeah.
But you have something like this here.
A little forced, but yeah.
Yeah. Is this one of the biggest full circle moments for you in this sport in recent history? What Eric was able to do coming back to Gibbs and earning this win?
I mean, I guess so, but I mean, really, you are the one that reminds me of this Milwaukee story a lot more than any other person I've ever met, which is no problem at all. I think it's fascinating, actually.
I only got 150,000 views on my YouTube channel, so
yeah, I mean, I understand why it would be important. Yeah. I mean, that's a really cool full circle thing, though, for Eric Almirola and for Joe Gibbs Racing in their Busch Nationwide Xfinity program throughout the years. And I love that for Eric Almirola. I try to stay as neutral as I can since 2018 or 19 or so, when I started, cutting all ties with saying I'm this fan, trying to cut all that off. But Eric does hold a place in my heart for various reasons, and seeing him be able to still win after having his Cup days, full-time Cup days be over is pretty sweet. And to do it in a dominating fashion at Martinsville, tough track, but still have one of the best equipment in the series, and be able to show his talent and get it done. That's really cool, especially after 20 years, 17 years with the 20 car from Milwaukee, and just being pushed out of it and to no fault of his own. It's just, okay, now we want our real guy in the car. Get out, get back in the car. And it kind of also reminds me of the different things they had with like Martin Truex Jr. and Dale Jr. both in the 8 car at New Hampshire, that kind of thing. We don't see many driver changes in the top 3 national series, and that was just some odd times, and that's a big example of it. But yeah, pretty full circle for Eric Almirola.
Yeah, but to your point as well, I think that was a situation where Junior was coming off of a minor injury and started the race, but
from Sonoma, I believe.
Yeah. The burns from that crash there, and I mean that was a situation where it made sense. Main driver starts the race, and then a relief driver comes in and finishes it.
Right.
This was just, I don't know if it was, again, go back and forth between sponsorship obligations or, the Cup guys here, and he maybe gives us a better shot even if we disadvantage him. I mean, but again, that to me, I think is an even greater insult if that's the position that they took. And again, I think it was probably a combination of both. But, regardless, that was in the past. Eric finally got his full circle moment, and I think that's fantastic for him.
Yeah, I was just thinking of different times that NASCAR has allowed active driver changes during a race,
Sure.
and, it not be, banned or anything. It's just kind of rare that's happened. But yeah, that's pretty cool for Eric Almirola.
Yeah, and I mean it's not unprecedented. Again, I think Kyle Busch, I think, had the flu one race, and I think David Gilliland ended up driving the 18 in a relief role. Forget exactly which race that was, probably 08, 09, but
yeah, it's pretty standard for when a driver is sick on race day. They have the other guy on standby to jump in if needed.
Yeah, but I mean this was something that, again, you're with all the limitations. If drivers are taking advantage of their 5 starts, they're doing it at weekends where the Xfinity Series is at the same place as the Cup Series. The days of the guys jumping from Xfinity or even races at Sonoma now, but that would be, AJ Allmendinger has done it a couple times with colleague. That's really the only time that you see guys, hopping on the helicopter flight or the jet from one part of the country
Portland
to
another.
Those days are certainly long gone in that regard. But yeah, I mean, couldn't be happier for Eric Almirola to get this win. And again, we were out at Sonoma last year with Brock Beard and NASCAR.info, and saw him get the win there in the admittedly heavily Stewart Haas prepared RSS racing car. Take nothing away from that organization, though. Great feel good story there as well. And now to follow it up, getting this part-time deal with Gibbs and kind of getting to pick and choose his schedule so that he can spend more time with his family, but also still continue to race. And this seems like he's certainly enjoying it a lot more. I would certainly be enjoying his schedule a lot more than I would be, on the Cup Series grind, running 20th every week with SHR equipment that isn't what it used to be. So great result for him. And hopefully, it continues with however many starts he's got left this year.
Also, all the victory lane pictures with his kids had to be the icing on the cake for sure.
Absolutely.
To be able to celebrate that on Saturday with his family.
No doubt. Well, let's stick with Toyota and Joe Gibbs here. Let's talk about the guy down in 3rd place. He leads the point standings by a mile now. His worst finish of the year is 8th. That's his only non-top 5 of the season. Keeps racking off podiums, if you will, top 3s left and right. Can anybody stop Chandler Smith, Brandon, aside from perhaps the Championship 4 playoff format?
No, I think it's pretty full steam ahead for Chandler Smith and the 81 team. He's one of those top-notch drivers. He's there and Joe Gibbs for a reason, and that top ride, and he is going to be in the Championship 4 for the Xfinity Series, or something is really wrong, or something's going to go terribly wrong. I think he's got all the chances in the world to be there at the end. Just the question is, can he do it at Phoenix?
Yeah, well, again, we were saying the same thing about Allmendinger in 22 with how many top 10s he was racking off, and that streak that lasted for a long time, and then he just had some speed bumps and some trouble in the round of 8, and that was all it took. Even with all those playoff points, even with that advantage that had been built up from the regular season championship, it was not enough to put him in the Championship 4, and there are certainly no guarantees in this format. But if Chandler Smith continues to run the way that he's running right now, he will certainly have no problem getting to the Championship 4 and maybe even taking a championship at Phoenix by the time it's all said and done. Well, speaking of Junior Motorsports and Chevrolet, let's talk about them a little bit here as well. We talked last week, Bubba Pollard's sixth place finish. That was the best result for them at this point in the year, which was kind of hard to believe. Sam Mayer had one heck of a night. I think certainly a run that he definitely needed to have, and comes away with a second place finish. That team was running 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 at one point, though, during the race. That's something that, you certainly don't see in the Cup Series anymore. Maybe Roush did it, in the mid 2000s when they had 5 cars, but I can't remember a time we've seen a team run first through fifth all together in the same race. Is it safe to say Junior Motorsports is back? They certainly showed some speed. They didn't necessarily get the results with each of their cars, but you still see 3 of them up in the top 5, 4 in the top 7. Are they back, or do they need a win first?
Look, I'm not ready to say they're back just because they finished all 5 at Martinsville one weekend out of the calendar year. I'm just not ready to do that. I've seen them all the rest of this year enough to know that they are not back, and they still need a lot of help before they're ready to be back where they need to be, which was probably 2 years ago, I think, since we've really had all of Junior Motorsports working well as a whole. It kind of mirrors, in the same Hendrick vein, Junior Motorsports, what we saw Sunday with the top 3 at Martinsville, all being the Hendrick Ruby Red. And actually, that's the first time in 151 races at Martinsville that we've had a 1, 2, 3 finish of the same team at Martinsville. But for the Xfinity Series, that's also great for Junior Motorsports. I don't think they're back, though. I think they were great for the short track race at Martinsville, but I don't know if I'd say that they're back.
Yeah, what is it with 1, 2, 3 finishes right now? We had one with Gibbs last weekend at Richmond in Xfinity. We got one with Hendrick this weekend in Cup, and certainly a big weekend for them. Of course, Rick is a minority owner in Junior Motorsports, so some strong runs. I'm sure the morale around that team has to be feeling good. But yeah, one race is the smallest possible sample size. I think we need to see this a little bit more consistently before we officially declare them to be back, so to speak.
I am convinced of this much, though. I know it's not about the Cup Series here, but I think if whenever we do see Brad Kay or Chris Buescher get their next win, you're going to see the other one right behind them. They seem to fly as a duo wherever they go in the grid.
Yeah. Teamwork makes the dream work. I guess you can say that much. And great to see so many teams running so well together as one here. I think that certainly has to lift the morale, like I was saying, at both the Junior Motorsports part of the organization as well as Hendrick. Again, I know there's a little bit of overlap there, maybe not quite as much as people might think. I think Dale Jr. tries to give the impression, at least, that they have made that organization pretty independent. But Rick is still on the owner's standings, I think, for the number 9 car, if I recall correctly. I think that's what it was in the past. But I know he certainly has a stake in the team still. But anyway, let's talk about that 5th car that was brought out again this week. It was Bubba Pollard at Richmond. Now Carson Kvapil going even 2 spots better, getting a 4th place finish in his first opportunity in that car. You see a run like this, Brandon, should he be in the running for a 2025 seat, whether it's at Junior Motorsports or otherwise?
Yeah, and I think that I don't think Junior Motorsports picks out these short track aces out of the pool of thousands of, maybe not thousands, but hundreds of other talent around the country right now on the short track level. I don't think they go around picking and choosing these to have one-off runs for nothing. I think these are, whether we see it or not, some auditions going on for, okay, what can our future look like? Who's got the stuff? And also, Carson Kvapil has something that Bubba Pollard doesn't. He's younger. He's a lot younger, and I don't think, even with the impressive run we did see from Pollard last weekend in the Commonwealth, I don't think he's in the running for a full season in Xfinity Series competition, although he certainly seemed like he enjoyed it and loved it. But Carson Kvapil, he's one that he has the talent, but also he's got the age on his side where I think they could use someone like him long term, kind of like a Sammy Smith, who, we just saw get old enough to be able to drive at Talladega and Daytona. He was already so young and had his development ladder through Toyota and finally picked up a spot there for the 8 car. I could see Carson Coughlin being that same way. The question is, where does he fit there if they want him? Or it doesn't even have to be a junior motorsports at this level. I mean, there's a whole field of teams that are looking for their next big thing, and Carson Coughlin definitely could foot that bill as anybody's next big thing.
Yeah, well, and again, I think it just anywhere within the Chevy family where he can find a spot, because he, of course, made his truck debut at Bristol last year, finished 12th. He made his ARCA debut at Kansas last year with the Pinnacle number 28 Chevrolet over in that series and finished second. So he has made the most of these now 3 one-off opportunities here. I think certainly showing that if he gets the opportunity to move up from the Cars Tour into one of these top 3 national series, or maybe it's an ARCA ride next year, and then he gets that chance in 26. But he's certainly got the talent to warrant that. So I'm sure those conversations are going to be had here in the not too distant future.
Had the privilege of doing a lot of work around tracks where Carson Coughlin was on the grid. And if I remember correctly, he's the one with all the hair. I think he's got the hair game going down. I think that's the one I'm thinking of.
All right. Let's circle back to the last junior motorsports car here. An up and down weekend for Brandon Jones. Sat on pole. Unfortunately, had to go to the rear of the field for unapproved adjustments and part change there. But he had a situation where, again, this was when junior motorsports was all running up front. He missed a shift on a restart. He ended up being one of the lucky few that was able to carry on from that, but it certainly caused a massive stack up behind. AJ Allmendinger was a part of that. You see him down there in 36th. Austin Hill certainly taking a step back in the points with his poor result there in 34th. But how lucky was he to initially escape that? Of course, he got caught up in a wreck on the last lap, and that's why he still got shuffled back regardless. But it seemed like it was a very up and down mixed emotions weekend for Brandon Jones, because the speed is there, but couldn't get the result.
Yeah, that's really sad for Jones, because he did have the speed for sure this weekend, and that was just a catastrophe. Absolutely embarrassing. I mean, this is a track you don't want to miss a shift, plain and simple. There's not enough room to recover after missing a shift. There's some places you might be able to get a little hiccup on whatever line that you're in front of. Not at Martinsville, man. You can't see anything going into one, and there's nothing the folks behind him could do. I think Eric Almirola was actually more lucky to get out of that, because he was part of that outside lane there on the restart. He got a good bump, but still was able to navigate his way out of it. Brandon Jones, though, and people behind him were not so fortunate. Well, Jones was, but it is funny that he still ended up with a DNF in the last lap, which is sounds like the most Brandon Jones statement you could make. I think he's got a lot of talent. He's gone through a lot of what can you do kind of scenarios, hasn't he?
Yeah, and at Martinsville too, the place where he thought he was going to win a race and punch his ticket to a championship 4. And I'm sorry,
all good.
My roommate's passing by the door there. I don't know if the mic picked up on that, but
yeah, it's okay.
Yeah,
no words were heard. No words were heard.
Gotcha. Okay, I wasn't quite sure. Again, just at the same track where that happened with Ty Gibbs, and that whole deal with his penultimate race with Joe Gibbs Racing. It seems like he hasn't been able to buy a break this year, but also, at Martinsville Speedway, just the place has not been kind to him in recent history.
He can buy a break. He can't use them either, because he missed the shift.
Yeah, for sure. And again, hopefully we got a little bit of a taste of that. The speed will start to come back for that team and that 9 car in particular. But we'll just have to wait and see here. Certainly not the result that they were hoping for, and not the result that their teammates were fortunate to come away with as well. So we'll see if Brandon Jones can bounce back. In the meantime, let's move on here to something we don't cover as often here on this show, but I want to give a little bit of an update on what's been going on the last couple of weeks in the Modified Tour. Justin Bonsignor picked up career win number 41 at Richmond in the Virginia's for Racing Lovers 150. Ron Silk ended up taking second place, but critically for Bonsignor, he moved into a position where he is 1 win away from tying Ted Christopher for third place on the all-time modified wins list with 42 wins. This was his 41st. He had an opportunity to get that 42nd at Thompson this weekend, ended up coming up just short of that with a 4th place finish. Ron Silk went 1 better than he did at Richmond and got the win. But Brandon, I want to ask you this question here. We think of great modified racers in NASCAR history. Obviously, Richie Evans is in the Hall of Fame, Jerry Cook as well, and then Mike Stefanik, who's number one on that list by no small margin, I might add, a multi-time champion in NASCAR. I think long overdue to get into the Hall of Fame. It's a shame he couldn't give his own speech there, but he is in the Hall as well. So that's some pretty strong modified representation here. When you look at what Justin Bonsignore has done in our time here, in our era, in the modified tour, do you think especially if he gets to 50 wins here, which I would not put past him, is he a future Hall of Famer in his own right?
Absolutely. Yeah. He's in the top 5 of the all-time wins list. He's already up there with the other Hall of Famers that have already made it to the Hall in Charlotte. Looking at his 41 wins, you can't deny that is the Hall of Fame level. Just the question is, who do you pair him with, and what year does that happen? And unfortunately for Mike Stefanik, like we talked about several months ago, whenever he made it into the Hall of Fame, unfortunately wasn't able to give his speech. And I remember you being very upset about that. And once I learned more about it, I was upset along with you. That's unfortunate that his last win being in 2013 for Mike Stefanik anyway. Plenty of time throughout those years to put him in the Hall of Fame and get that done. You look at people around Justin Bonsignore, Tony Hirschman right behind him, Doug Coby, both of them 35 wins in their career. Well, he's passed them, and like you said, he's able to get 50 for sure. His career is far from over. Got Ted Christopher and Reggie Ruggiero in front of him with 42 and 44, and then there's that big gap between them and Stefanik. So Bonsignore, essentially, when his career is over, wouldn't be surprising if he is the second all time for sure.
Yeah, again, not Christopher Stefanik, rather, is so far ahead that I don't know if that's necessarily a number that's within reach. But again, you look at what Bonsignore has done in the modifieds, and who knows what the future holds for him. I know he got that ARCA start at Daytona with Rhett Jones earlier this year as well, but certainly no shortage of accomplishments, and he continues to add to that legacy here in the modified tour in 2024. So we'll keep an eye on that. We'll see. We've got to come up with a name for that, like, I don't know, Christopher Watch or something like that as he approaches that mark there. But certainly anytime you can match anything that Ted Christopher did in the modified tour, you're doing a darn good job there in your own right. So well done to Justin Bonsignore, and well done to Ron Silk as well, who's also moving up the leaderboard here. 24 wins for him. His next target is a name that should be familiar to most fans, Ryan Preece, with 26. He's ninth all time on that.
Yeah, that surprised me to see that again, how impressive Ryan Preece it was in the Whelen Modified Tour. And that, it's obvious why he is where he is today. It's because he proved his worth with the ground pounders and the modifieds of mayhem in New England.
All right. Let's close the show out here tonight with, again, a series that we don't cover as closely here or as often. I'm sure if our friend Casey Campbell was here tonight, we might go into a little bit further detail, but we had to talk about this. Again, this is a name that I think the last name especially should be very familiar to most race fans. USF Juniors kicking off their season at NOLA Motorsports Park. Sebastian Wheldon winning race 1, second in race 2, and then picking up another win again in race 3. So let's put the caveat out here, Brandon. Obviously, there's a lot of pressure to put on a 15-year-old kid who's still in high school and he still has as many series that he needs to continue to progress through on the road to Indy. But Sebastian Wheldon, I think, is a name that a lot of people are going to be keeping an eye on here as he continues to work through that path. Is his early success the kind of positive momentum storyline that a series like IndyCar needs right now, with everything else that is taking up the off-track drama here?
I'm going to nerd out here and use a quote from Chancellor Sheev Palpatine and say, "We'll be watching your career with great interest." Because that's exactly what we're doing with the young Wheldon, Sebastian Wheldon, 15 years old. He's already doing pretty well for himself, isn't he, there from NOLA Motorsports Park in USF Juniors. He seems to already have the charisma of his dad. Certainly has the backing with the Wheldon name, and it's still fresh in the hearts and minds of many IndyCar fans and race fans around the world of that tragic day in 2011. at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. It's still hauntingly close to us that watch that live, and just to see the legacy that he has left behind. Here he is, his young son Sebastian Wheldon. Here he is, following the footsteps of his father, and seems to be having a lot of success right now. This is exactly the kind of thing that IndyCar could use some of right now. Going through a kind of an uncertain year, the new chassis not coming for several years into the future, and the waning of some motorsports purists of some of the decisions that have been made in the head office with Penske Entertainment and IndyCar, and the talks of Andretti of what, why don't you just sell the thing, Roger? Not really saying it should be to Michael, but kind of saying it should be to Michael. So out of all that going on right now, it would be nice to have some sort of feel good. Here comes the unlikely hero in to improve your ratings or whatever. I don't know. Sebastian Wheldon might be that guy. Again, it's way too young, way too early. He's just starting out. We don't know how far he's going to go, what kind of talent level he's going to have into the future, but certainly I would certainly assume he's going to have the financial backing and also a spot on each step of the ladder if he wants it. The question is, how will he perform? And that is yet to be seen, but I could see him certainly becoming a household name in IndyCar, and I would like to be. This would be one of those that I would like to be in Speedway, Indiana, on the Indy 500 day that he makes his debut, hopefully one day.
Yeah, well, and again, like you mentioned, it is far too early to proclaim him a future 500 winner or future IndyCar champion. We've got a long way to go before those discussions are being had, but he's certainly doing everything right, and he is on the right path to potentially be there one day. And again, just looking past the financial aspect of it as well, I think the motivation certainly has to be, at the very top for him as well. So he doesn't have to worry about that either. I would certainly recommend everybody, if you have access to Max here in the States, I don't know where else it would be streaming internationally, but if you haven't seen the Lionheart documentary yet, definitely go check it out. It is not an easy watch, but it is a good watch nonetheless, and certainly gives you unprecedented behind-the-scenes access to, both Sebastian and Oliver in the career path that they're going down right now, and again, trying to, live out their father's legacy here and build on that with their family legacy. And like we said, you almost could not have a better start to your career than what Sebastian Wheldon did this weekend, winning 2 of the 3 races and finishing second in that middle race there as well. So we'll be keeping an eye on his career, like you were saying, Brandon, and wishing him nothing but the best. Again, keeping our expectations in check for the time being, but it's great to see him having this early success so far.
I think this would also be a great time to also give a plug for Brock Beard's documentary Until Lap 11 as well, that came out a couple of years ago. Fantastic display of how all those events unfolded there.
Yeah, and NASCAR Man as well, Perfect Storm, which Brock narrated. Obviously, if you want more of the emotions of that day, again, I know Until Lap 11 is certainly a difficult watch as well, but Perfect Storm, I think, does a great job of the build up to the event and the hype surrounding the race as a whole, and obviously Wheldon playing a big part in that on the heels of what happened at Indianapolis earlier that year. But certainly a critical time in IndyCar's history back then, and I think again we're in another critical point in the series history now, and the Wheldon name could be right at the center of all of that. Again, like I mentioned, it is a tremendous amount of pressure to put on somebody who's still in high school and has a ways to go. So I want to be careful with how much we're doing that and not falling into that trap here. But certainly, again, I think the hype is certainly building when you see results like this early. So it's been good to see. All right, well, we're going to wrap the show up here in just a moment. But before we do, as always, Brandon, I'll turn it over to you first. Do you have a one shining moment for us from this weekend in the series that we talked about tonight?
I do. It is for, I think I've just got to go with the obvious one, Shane Van Gisbergen and him with Xfinity in Martinsville. He had a well, where did he end up there? 11. I think it was 11th.
Yes,
Yes, 11th. Yeah. From some things I read, I think he said like that was fun. So I think mission accomplished. It wasn't exactly what I predicted, thinking that he was going to get in some sort of altercation and finally lose his cool and have a talk with somebody, or someone have a talk with him. But I'm glad he made it out, having fun and finishing the race in a great spot too. He's not just some racer. He's not just some guy getting there for the first time in Martinsville and finishing 11th. He's got the stuff for sure. That's my one shining moment.
I mentioned it earlier in the show, but I'm going to give it to Chase Purdy, a great result in third. And again, I know it hasn't been the easiest of past seasons for him. He's on his fourth different team in 4 years, if you can believe it, although there is the asterisk there with Kyle Busch Motorsports being his team last year. And essentially, I'm sure a lot of the same people with that organization, considering that Spire Motorsports purchased them, and now he's with Spire here in 24. But to bounce from GMS to Hattori to KBM, now over at Spire, he hasn't really had that continuity, and I think that's made it harder for him to build that momentum over the course of his Truck Series career. But it seems like he might be in position where he could maybe sneak out a win later this year with how well those Spire trucks have been running. So great run for him, great result there. That's my one shining moment. That's our show for tonight. So thank you all so much for watching, as always, and be sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms if you haven't already. X/Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitch, LinkedIn, Threads, and most importantly, right here on YouTube. Thank you all again so much for helping us hit 1,000 subscribers. Here's to the next 1,000. So if you aren't subscribed, go ahead and hit the bell icon as well, so that you never miss a notification every time we upload a new video or host a new show. Again, if you really liked what you saw tonight, you can take a few minutes to invest in our Patreon. Join Colin Deschelle, Mark, Robin, David, and Matthew in investing in Grid Network to help keep us on the air throughout 2024 and beyond. Our long-term goal of $500 per month will allow us to begin attending races on site on a more regular basis, and that expands our coverage for you, the viewers. If you'd rather make a one-time donation instead, you can visit the Buy Me a Coffee link in the description box below, or if you're watching on YouTube, we now have Super Chats enabled as well. Any amount will help us continue to grow our motorsports media outlet. Now, Grid Tonight will be back on Wednesday with Kobe Lambeth, Josh Birch, and Matt White. Women in Motorsports back this week as well with myself and Joe Samaniego. Hopefully, Isha Azim will be able to join us and be a part of that as well. And then, of course, we'll do it all over again. Grid Live pre-race, wrap-up, and encore to follow. Regular time for pre-race this week, and then an After Dark show again before the Chinese Grand Prix in 2 weeks' time. So stay tuned for that. Brandon, any final thoughts before we sign off for tonight?
Yes, we go to the Texas Motor Speedway next weekend, and we'll see what we can make of that. In other news, some Middle Tennessee racing news, and I wish I had more on this. I tried to do some last-minute research because I just remembered it, but something really cool I thought you might like to hear. There's a guy around here that races at Nashville Fairgrounds and also Veterans Motorplex, formerly known as Highland Rim Speedway, young racer named Jackson McLaren. He's going to be making he's going to be making an ARCA Menard Series debut. I don't know if it's East or West or the full thing, probably East if I had to guess. But he is one of the main guys at it's kind of popular around here at the Middle Tennessee racing circles. It's the Bubba's About Broke podcast. They go around a lot of dirt tracks around here and the asphalt tracks. But Jackson McLaren, if we could find that name, I think it's an East debut or something like that. But there's some news around here in the Middle Tennessee circles.
We'll follow up on that. I haven't heard that myself, of course. When that happens, we'll cover it here as it's part of a series we regularly cover here. It's the end of a show here, trying to get my words out here and not get too tongue-tied. But we will keep an eye on that nonetheless. All I can say is welcome back, Johnny Sauter, another start of Nice Motorsports coming up, and welcome back, Kyle Busch. He'll be making another start in that Spire truck. Maybe not welcome back if you're our friend Josh Birch.
It's just back.
Yeah,
he's back.
We'll see. We might have to go a little bit deeper when it comes to what we're going to talk about next week. If Kyle just racks up yet another win, I don't know how much more we can really say about him at this point. But fair warning, if it's your thing, great. If not, we got to put up with the aptly named bushwhacker, the king of bushwhackers here once again this week. But hopefully it's a good race. I think Texas certainly needs something good to happen with the current state of that track and not having IndyCar back this year, and obviously the NASCAR race is not being very good in recent memory. Hopefully we get a decent weekend coming up here. All right, for Brandon Crossland, I'm Ben Schneider. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. We will see you next week right here on Grid Live Encore. Have a good rest of your evening, everyone.